Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to Four Verticals Podcast, episode 95. This is the pre-show, if you will. We'll be starting the actual show here in a few minutes, getting folks some time here to hustle in, get ready, and got a pretty decent show for you guys today. I think I have a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things happening. Big Noon Kickoff controversy going on, Oklahoma team preview, record projection. They are up next. And we got Q&A, so it might be more of the shorter show today, but nothing wrong with that. Of course, last week, or last Thursday, we didn't do the pre-show because of, we had, of course, living in Florida, we had a lot of those afternoon showers and storms in the afternoon. And in lieu of you guys having to hear thunder in the background, I decided to not do the pre-show and just go straight into the show, not waste too much time. So we'll give folks about another couple minutes or so to hop in. Hopefully everyone's having a good day. Of course, we are, as I mentioned, high top Jacksonville, Florida. It's going to be hot this weekend, near 100. So that's going to feel like summer, but got some beneficial rain. Now it's just going to be dry for the next couple of days. So nothing wrong with that. Again, if you are new here, make sure to subscribe, like the streams and videos. Follow me on Twitter as well. As I will say, before we get officially started, that we might, the schedule next week, we'll see what it looks like. I may have to change some stuff around. I'll let you guys know on Thursday, by Thursday, what that will look like. But, yeah, some scheduling issues, but not like we're not going to stop doing shows. We'll do shows next week, but it won't be, we will probably not have a show live on Tuesday. We'll say that we'll probably have something else, either a pre-recorded show, and we'll post it on Tuesday, or we will just move the show to Monday. So I don't know. We'll see. But more than likely, no show on Tuesday, or no live show on Tuesday. We'll see about that. So looks like here about to get started here in a minute, at least for the podcast folks. The YouTube folks, of course, will. We usually have a pre-show. We started doing that months ago. Of course, our 100th episode's coming up here pretty soon. So now it is 3:05. So I am about to start recording on the podcast feed, for the podcast feed version. And then we'll be getting started here in 3, 2, 1. Welcome in, Four Verticals Podcast, episode 95. 5 episodes away from 100. It is May 13th, 2025, high atop Jacksonville, Florida, steamy Jacksonville, Florida. Got a big show for you guys today, as usual, big show. Just because it's, NBA playoff time, doesn't mean we stop talking about college football. There's always news going on. And, of course, within the last 24, 48 hours, there's been some controversy with Big Noon Kickoff. We'll get into that. Oklahoma, team preview, record projection, whatever you want to call it. We've been sort of loose on the terminology here, but it's basically just a team preview, right? We project the best case, worst case, most reasonable scenarios, and we'll have Q&A. So a more condensed show today. Don't think it'll be an hour long, but we'll see. If you are new here, first of all, welcome in. Make sure a couple things here on top here, and then we'll actually get started. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter. Links are in the description somewhere, I believe. No, but they should be on the. Just go to my channel, more info, and you should find it over there. And make sure you subscribe, like the streams, like the videos. You don't have to, put your notifications on or anything. I don't do that for the channels I follow, but just do those things. Subscribe. Podcast feed, YouTube, and on Twitter as well. So, yeah, I got a big show for you guys today, and we will. Let me go ahead and get started. We have no one in the live chat, but YouTube is claiming we have 2 people watching. Now, one of them is me because it's me looking at my my laptop here, but I think there is someone else watching supposedly. So if you're the other person watching, hopefully you're having a good day. But yeah, let's get started here. So within the last couple of days or so, let me move my laptop a little bit closer here so I can see the screen. So within the last 24, 48 hours or so, mainly 24 hours, there has been a uproar, a controversy with Big Noon Kickoff and Fox. Our friends over there, Joel Klatt, Gus Johnson, everyone throwing shame at them. Maybe asking yourself if you've been living under a rock. What's happening? Why is everyone mad at Fox now? Well, not News Corporation, but Fox Sports. Why is everyone so upset? Why is everyone up in arms? Well, it was announced yesterday that Fox is doing the Week 1 game with Ohio State versus Texas, which both of those teams in the AP and coaches poll will probably be 1 versus 2. So I guess a game of the century type game. Very excited. Probably, it is going to be the biggest game of that weekend. There's other big games too: LSU, Clemson, Bama, Florida State. But this one is definitely the headliner. Everyone's going to be watching it. Even the casuals among us will be watching it because there's no NFL that weekend. So everyone in the sports world will be glued to college football. So, and look, I like it as a fan, right? As a fan of the sport, I cover it. It's nice to see a lot of folks who don't watch the sport religiously watch it Week 1. That's the beauty of Week 1 in college football. But the controversy is it being on Fox and given Fox's, the whole media rights deal, Fox for a long time, or for the longest time, and almost half a decade now, they, with their exclusive partnership now, especially now with the Big Ten, because I don't think they do this for the Big 12 anymore, but the Big Ten, given Big Noon Kickoff, because of, Big Noon, with the Big Ten now, every single Fox game that is on Fox, that is, Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt, is 100% guaranteed going to be at noon. And unfortunately for the folks in Columbus, Ohio, they once again will be on at noon, Week 1 of the season versus Texas. And sort of, I guess that's part of the controversy is, there's many layers to this. There's a lot of layers to it. And I want to address the reason why this is like this. And I kind of already did, but it's a little bit out of order here. But the reason why this happens, of course, like I just mentioned, I guess I'm repeating myself, that Fox has the first selection when it comes to the drafting games to the Big Ten. So, again, Big Noon Kickoff, big in the title, they have the first dibs at it, right? And it makes sense to do a Big Ten game versus a Big 12 game because, the Big Ten is more valued than the Big 12. But so they have the first selection of when it comes to drafting games. And they've been doing that. They usually do it around this time of the year, around May. And so that's something that publicly has been out there. I mean, Joel Klatt's talked about it publicly on his show and on other shows that this is when they typically do this. And he sits in on those meetings. Him and Gus Johnson sit on them, and they help determine which games they want. And they get the first pick of the litter. It just happens to be Ohio State once again is available, and they will choose them. And I think for Ohio State fans that and of course it's obvious the game has to be at noon because there's Big Noon Kickoff. But the reason why folks don't like this, and I think a lot of the Big Ten folks, especially, well, just anyone, right? If you're a Ohio State fan, if you're a Wyoming fan, if you're a Boise State fan, if you're a Texas Tech fan, if you're a South Florida fan, you hate this. If you're a college football fan in general, if you're a college football fan, I guarantee you hate this, and you hate this because you've always been. And this falls into me a little bit as well as someone growing up in the late 2000s, 2010s, that you've always been sort of conditioned to thinking that these big games, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, top 10, top 5, top 15 games, according to the AP and the coaches, they have always been designated as primetime games. 7:30 on ABC, the once a year CBS game. Now that's sort of now with the Big Ten, it's not a thing anymore. The SEC it was because famously with the 2011 LSU Bama game, they actually had, or 2011 season, they had CBS had LSU Bama, but they also had Bama versus Florida. And Bama versus Florida was going to be the only primetime game, and they had this trade of ESPN, and they gave ESPN the Iron Bowl in 2014, which is why ESPN had that game in 2014, which I didn't know that until today on the Next Round Live, and I was listening to Jim Dunaway and all of them. They brought it up as a little bit of a reminder that there have been trades in the past, and I think that happened last year, which is why Oregon and Ohio State was on NBC. And I think part of it too, I think with Big Noon, I think another rule is that they can't necessarily do games involving the old Pac-12 teams if they're hosting, because they'll be kicking off at they'll be kicking off at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I think it's they mainly try to stick with the East Coast teams. My computer just went black there for just a second. There we go. It's fixed now. I was asleep, but yeah, they usually tend to stay away from the West Coast, so it's mainly East Coast, Central Time, eastward. That's when they try to do Big Noon Kickoff, and they'll try to go venture over there. So if this is a game where Ohio State versus, I don't know, like USC knows a one versus, if it was back with like the old Pac-12 and the Big Ten, if USC was top 5, Ohio State was traveling over, this would be a NBC game, or I guess an NBC or ABC game, but whatever. It would not be a Big Noon game because it would be, it'll be 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't think folks would necessarily appreciate that. But anyway, the point is, a lot of folks don't like it. A lot of folks like me and some of these other traditionalists have been sort of conditioned to having these big games on primetime. And I think at Fox, they didn't realize that with like devoid of, games, there's people cutting grass. Of course, this happens when I'm doing my show. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I think Fox smartly said, hey, all these big games are in the evenings, but why not move them to, or like 2:30 and onwards, why not move them to noon slate? Because the noon slate for a long time was like, Mississippi State versus Texas A&M, Ole Miss versus Auburn, Minnesota versus Rutgers, like some like little crappy, Big Ten or SEC game, Big 12 or ACC game, and it, they usually fill that time slot. I think Fox smartly said, hey, why not bring that flavor to the noon? And look, I understand from the marketing, Fox, you get, it's a sort of a standalone game. I understand that, right? From the business standpoint, put on your business cap. That makes sense. It's not that stupid. But I also understand why a lot of folks would be upset by this, especially if you're Ohio State. Because Ohio State, they really do not have they didn't have any big primetime games last year. In fact, for a number of years, they have not had, ever since, ABC left, their contract expired with the Big Ten. They have not had any major games or home games during the regular season at prime time, and it just hasn't happened yet. And unfortunately, because the way the TV deals work, Fox, because of Ohio State's brand, they will do their games at noon like 95% of the time. The other 5% is either Penn State or Michigan, at least currently. That's just the way it's going to be. And I know it as a fan, and someone who follows the sport and watches the sport. It sucks. I don't hide that. It sucks. I know there's a lot of folks who like the Big Noon stuff, like Josh Payton, all that. And look, I understand where JP's coming from, where yes, for his sake, it makes it easier for him to go to the game and leave after, so he's not like there the entire day. I understand that. And that for him, from a logistical standpoint, that makes sense. But as a fan, who's someone who wants to have these big night atmospheres and it's electric, and Ohio State could wear the black uniforms, I kind of like that. And unfortunately, with the Big Ten policy and the Fox policy, and by the way, there is that old Big Ten policy where they don't want primetime games in November because of the cold. That's also a thing, too. If you didn't know that, it sucks. It really does suck. And look, I understand, Fox and those guys are getting a lot of blowback. Is it possible for some reason, for somehow, some way, that Fox could move this to a later kickoff if the backlash is too much? Probably unlikely. I don't see it happening. I think that the noon thing is legally, they can't change it unless they go to NBC and say, hey, I know you have a game this week. Could we trade? And they could do that, but I don't think so. I think they would much rather have this be a noon kickoff. And not to mention, too, there's other games will be going on that are also high profile with LSU Clemson. So I think to avoid competition with that, I don't think this is moving. I think it's staying where it is. Yes, does it suck? Yes, does it mean that Ohio State, once again, for like the 100th time or 1,000th or 1,000,000th time, they're on Big Noon Kickoff again? Yes, I know a lot of you in Columbus and Toledo and Cleveland and so on and so forth, and Xenia, Ohio. Yes, I know you guys are mad. I know a lot of you guys don't like this, but it is what it is. Nothing to do about it. It is what it is. And unfortunately, these TV contracts they're somewhat ironclad. You cannot really do much with them. You can't change them or make them flexible. You can do it, but it's awfully hard, at least from what I've been told. So, look, I understand the reasons for it and the reasons against it. I'm sort of in the middle with it. Like, I don't mind it, but I will agree with a game like this, it being a sort of game of the century, if you will, in the terms of regular season. Yeah, it sucks that this will have to be a noon kickoff, and there's nothing we can do about it. Fox will not change their minds on it. I think the way Joel Klein has explained it, once they decide it, it's pretty much in Sharpie. You can't erase it. So It sucks. I get it. It sucks if you're Ohio State that Fox wants to do every single game that you are, or every single time you're available because you are the biggest brand in the Big Ten right now, or at least the most appealing brand. You, Michigan and Penn State, man. The only way you can have a primetime game is unfortunately have to go play one of the West Coast teams at their place because, again, with Fox's policy, they can't do big noon kickoff games at the if it's involving the legacy Big Ten teams or the new ones, like the former Pac-12, again because of the clock issue with a big noon kickoff game at 9 o'clock. That just doesn't make any sense. So that's the only way you can get out of it. But unfortunately, you have to go somewhere else to the West Coast to do it. And you can't do it at home. So, look, I understand it sucks, and I totally understand why you guys are upset, and a lot of folks are upset about it. And I agree. I wish this was Fox, manned up and said, look, fine, we'll move this to 7:30. We'll have the pregame show, then we'll have it lead into a different game. Then we'll have Gus and Joel wait until the afternoon or evening. I just don't think it's going to happen. It's not going to. So it sucks. But as much as I can say, I agree with you guys. And I also feel, this is starting to get a little bit annoying. This TV deal is what it is. They can't change it, or at least there's no reason for them to change it because, like I just mentioned, it's a standalone game. There's no other big games competing with it. It will draw a lot of eyeballs, and it's going to get it's going to be viewership numbers out of the wazoo, and I totally understand that. And from a business standpoint, from a money standpoint, yes, this is the way it has to be. But as a fan, it's like, can NBC and them, can they make a deal where they get at least one primetime game a year? We don't have to force any of these games on at least the games before November because of the other Big Ten rule that, hey, we can at least have one of these at 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock on Fox. But this is what it is, and there's nothing we can do about it, at least us from the fans. But some of the other games have been announced. Speaking of kickoff times, other games, I guess, if you want to look at it, I guess I know a lot of you folks may be jealous by this, especially if you're a Big Ten fan, but ABC announced their games for week 1. So Tennessee, it's an interesting little SEC, ACC sort of challenge here, I guess. Tennessee, Syracuse, that's the game in Atlanta, neutral site. That's at noon like it was last year. 3:30 on ABC. Florida State, Bama. It's going to be hot as hell, more than likely, for that game in Tallahassee. So you folks traveling from Tuscaloosa and elsewhere, have fun with that. And then Clemson, LSU. 7:30 on ABC. Again, I know a lot of you folks in Austin, Texas, and in, I guess I'm really in Austin because you guys are in the SEC and you guys have the luxury of being on the ABC Saturday night game. Because the SEC and ABC going forward after week 1, they, that's their baby. That's, if you're an SEC team, you're going to be more likely, there's a chance you will be, or there's a 100% chance it will be, especially if they're bigger brands, you'll be on Saturday Night Football because that's for the new deals. But if you're a Ohio State fan, if you're living like Xenia, Toledo, Cincinnati, I mean, look at this and you see LSU Clemson on 7:30 on ABC, you go, man, that could be us. That could be us. And I get it. But look, I'm, as much as I agree with you guys, as much as this sucks, again, I'm kind of defending Fox here because, again, it's their policies and it's their rules, and that's very likely unlikely to change anytime soon. So, yeah, big noon controversy. Again, I get it, but look, unless something unforeseen changes, there's nothing they can do about it. And I get it. It sucks. It does suck. 2025 team record projections. We've started this a couple weeks ago. We have done so far. Texas, we did Florida State first time. Texas last week, and did Washington on Thursday. Now it's Oklahoma. So speaking of the SEC, here they are. Oklahoma last year, first year in the SEC. Of course, it was that summer. Brent Venables gets that contract extension. Now, initially, when they gave him that, to me, that felt like, look, whatever happens next year. They could be really, really bad, really, really good. He's not going anywhere. I think that was, to me, sort of insurance for Brent, Coach Brent Venables, that whatever happened going into last year, he was going to be fine. And it turns out to be the case. It got ugly last year. I understand that. They had to change that OC midseason. They bring in Ben Arbuckle, and they bring his buddy from Washington State, John Batir, at quarterback. I feel really good about Oklahoma. I don't feel like we're really good, but I feel good. Sort of like Washington last week. I don't know how to explain it, but there's just just something about me when we have these teams who are very urgent, a lot of urgency. Michigan with Jim Harbaugh coming into 2021 after he almost got fired in 2020. They didn't lose to Rutgers, I guess, but that team, a lot of urgency. Malzahn on Auburn several times when he was in a lot of urgency, he would rise up to the occasion. I have a sneaking suspicion that could be in play for Brent Venables in Oklahoma. Their schedule, by the way, now look, it's a tough schedule. There's no doubt. It's a tough schedule. But when you look at it, and I've looked at it multiple times, and I thought about this, it's not that unreasonable that they could enter that Texas game, which is on October 11th, neutral site, Red River Shootout. They could be undefeated. Both of these teams could be undefeated. Now, of course, Texas, as I mentioned, they play Ohio State, so they may have a loss, may not. Both of these teams could be either both undefeated or one of them could have one loss, or both of them could have one loss. They could. What I'm trying to say is that they will have good enough records to where this might be probably won't be a night kickoff or a nighttime kickoff on ABC because this game's usually in the afternoon or at noon, but this will probably be a high-profile game, as I'm trying to say. And I think there is a path for Oklahoma, especially, to be undefeated. And, of course, much like Texas, they play a Big Ten team, that being Michigan. But it's at home. And Michigan will have a true freshman quarterback, more likely, in Bryson Underwood. And I'm not trying to sit here and preview the game, but it's Brent Venables, who is a very experienced, D coordinator. And, I mean, he's a young in terms of years of being a head coach, but he's been around the business for a long time. I trust a Brent Venables defense a lot to harass, in football terms, harass the freshman quarterback. So I go for a bit of a spoiler here when we eventually get to that game. I feel good about Oklahoma in that game against Michigan. I don't know why, but I do know why, because I feel good about Brent Venables and his defense going against a true freshman quarterback on the road. So you have that game. You have to go to Temple. I get it. Yes, the alumni base, and it's kind of, take the check if you're Temple and take the loss, but it's a home game, so at least I guess Oklahoma gets to go somewhere, and the fans get to go somewhere. It's a city I've been to, Philadelphia, but I don't know if it's it's not the most appealing game, but, hey, we've seen Temple do crazy things before. Auburn at home and then Kent State. I think you should win those games, I'd imagine. Then it's Texas. Then it gets real in a hurry. You have, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Bama, Missouri, LSU. It gets real in a hurry, but you should in some way start 4-1, 5-0. There's a path for that. But then again, like I said, it gets real in a hurry. So the best case scenario here for them, now their over-under win total is 6.5. Their best case scenario is 10-2. As crazy as that sounds, if everyone's saying, Brent Venables, he's on the hot seat, he's in trouble. Look, I understand that. Oklahoma fans have a high standard. That administration has a high standard. But what they have bringing in, what they have, I guess, what they brought in with John Mateer and his buddy Ben Arbuckle at OC, I just have a feeling with the talent they have on defense, they can, I guess, they'll have to figure it out on offense. And look, they got some guys in the portal too, running back from Cal, but there's still a lot of unknown pieces. But I feel like you will eventually know those guys, and I think with the new offense, can't get much worse than it was last year. Defense should always be good under Brent Venables. It was good last year to a certain extent. A 10-2 with that schedule, with a lot of big games at home. Again, you look at the schedule. Again, you should start 5-0 going to the Texas game. Look, you may lose that game. At South Carolina, you should win that game. I emphasize should, and of course we get to that game. We could predict that game, and I don't feel good about it. But you have Ole Miss at home. You have Missouri at home. You have LSU at home. Tennessee, Bama, you could maybe split one of those. Maybe you get past South Carolina, who could be also a really good team with the Lenore Sellers. I just think there's a path they can go 10-2. That's not crazy to think. That's not insanity to think that. Worst case scenario is 7-5. Now, some of this, injury stuff, maybe the Mateer Arbuckle experiment that doesn't work out. And look, could you, of this record, could you see Oklahoma making a move and saying, look, we're sorry, Brent, but we have to move on. Look, I don't have much joy in saying that, but unfortunately, yeah, there's a real reality where that could happen. Now, I hope that doesn't happen, but 7-5 worst case scenario, that's on the table here. I was actually going to go a little bit more worse of that, but I don't know if the roster necessarily is disaster material. I don't expect them. I wasn't expecting their worst case to be 4-8 or 3-9, like Florida State last year. I don't think so. But that may be more generous. So, but I'm sticking with it as what it is. my most reasonable outcome, the one I can definitely see happening here, the one if you were to sort of look at it, just what is the most likely scenario here? I think it's 9-3. 9-3. Again, that's a lot of this is again, you have Michigan at home, you have Auburn at home. Again, you should start 5-0 heading into that Texas game. Or at least there's a reasonable to think that. Now, look, you could lose to Michigan, lose to Auburn. Like that's certainly on the table. But again, Brent Venables, freshman quarterback of Michigan, Auburn coming into town, and your former quarterback, who you're the starter, I would assume, barring injury, would imagine Brent Venables would have stuff schemed up for both of them. So I would imagine they'll probably win those two games. You beat your G5 teams in your FCS, go to the Texas game 5-0. After that, we're going to lose that one. It gets tough in a hurry regardless. And you could probably lose the Texas game, or those other games at Bama, maybe LSU, Ole Miss, South Carolina. Some of those you may win, some of them you may not. But I think in this scenario, I would imagine you maybe lose to Texas, lose two more of those other games I just mentioned. More likely, I guess, the ones on the road, I guess. So I guess you can figure it out. But I think 9-3 is reasonable here. And with that schedule and with that being pretty much backloaded, 9-3 of that schedule, you should be in the playoff. With that number, if I would imagine, again with the SEC bias, I think you should be in. So the 6.5 win total from FanDuel, we're going over in every single scenario here. So how about that? So, Ben Arbuckle, the OC, and John Mateer, if you're watching this, I'm mostly basing my over win total here, over their projected win total, based on your performance. I am assuming it's going to be fine, but it's not a guarantee. But, hey, there's I feel pretty good about Oklahoma right now. I do. And I could be wrong, but we've been wrong before. So how about that? Over win total 6.5. Feel pretty good about this if you're a Oklahoma fan. Or at least pretty good about next year, I guess. I mean, look, everyone else is sort of abandoning you. I'm not abandoning you. So guess you can somewhat feel relaxed, if you will, that I'm not abandoning you guys, and I feel pretty good about you guys potentially being a playoff team. So, again, it's not too crazy to think that. I'm not the only one who's thinking that. Josh Pitt has been saying that over the past several months, that he's starting to get pretty confident with OU. So, yeah. How about that? So, I'm going to get some water real quick, and we'll move on to, I guess, Q&A. So, yeah, it's going to be a pretty short show today. Don't usually go this short, but really kind of a slow week, which is understandable. It just happens time, now and again. But yeah, this is going to be a pretty short show. So how about that? Probably going to be, I guess, around 40 minutes or so. So yeah, probably definitely one of these shortest ones we had. And of course, in the Thursday show, I'd imagine be a lot longer here, and I'll explain why in just a second. As I get some water there, but I guess as we're sort of taking a breather here, again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We've been doing, if you're new here, we do this show Tuesday and Thursdays around the afternoon. We've been doing this for almost a year now. We've been doing this since June of last year. We're getting close to our anniversary, and we're also 5 episodes away from 100, our 100th episode, which in the old TV world, and I think this is still the case, that once you hit 100 episodes, you are that is the golden point to get syndicated, which means you have reruns. And we're getting close to that number, 95 episodes. I never thought we'd ever reach that number. When we started this, not to go on a whole monologue here, or a whole retrospective, but never thought we'll get to this point. When I first started this out, when I was doing this with very limited technology, I didn't think we would get to 100 episodes. So this is pretty insane that we're we're getting close to 100 episodes, and let alone a whole year of doing this. And I thank you guys for supporting me. We're not the newest. We're the newest show, but not the best show. We only have a total of 5 subscribers. It's a very small following here, but we're still growing, and we're still figuring some stuff out, and we're still trying a lot of things. And it's going to be interesting to say that it would be. I guess what I'm trying to say is, it'd be interesting to see how much more we can grow and how much more we'll be successful. Actually, as we're sitting here, I'm gonna check the radar here in Jacksonville just to see if it's raining. It was raining last week, and Of course, living in Florida, we usually get afternoon storms, and it certainly looks like we're going to get some today, and it definitely looks like it. So it kind of works out here that we're wrapping up the show, if you will, here in a little bit. Now, we're not done yet. We're still going to have a little bit of time left, but yeah, actually, I'm going to fix something on the notes here. I just realized we got something wrong here, so let me change it up just 1 second here. Again, nothing's happening here. I'm just fixing something. I just noticed questions wrong, if you will. All right, yeah, I just noticed something was misspelled there. So, okay, yeah, I just noticed something was misspelled there. So it's that's taken care of. The Vertical's grammar department took care of that. Yeah, so I guess we'll get into Q&A here. Of course, around this time of the year, with a little bit more time to spare, we usually, at least going forward, we'll be doing Q&A. Now, when we get towards the season, we'll probably do less and less of this. We'll still incorporate some of it. Now, I will say this actually before we get into Q&A, that the schedule release for the NFL will be tomorrow, I believe, or Thursday, one of the two. We will, of course, cover on the Thursday show or whenever we have a show again. I believe the schedule is announced Thursday, I believe. Yeah, it's tomorrow. Yeah, so it'll be Thursday when we'll talk about it. The Bucs will not be playing internationally, so that's good. We'll have to experience it a couple times, but it sucks having to get up at 9 o'clock and watching your team play. But thankfully, I'm to deal with that. I know some of you will have to deal with it, but Tampa for sure, no international games, so that's good. That's handshake emoji of us in the NFL that we're, as a Bucs fan, we'll have to deal with that. But yeah, the schedule will be released. We already know the opponents, we just don't know the order. So I will go over that and sort of preview it, and so that'll be Thursday. So Q&A here. Again, like I said, we'll do this, and we'll wrap up the show. And of course, you've been doing this for the past few months or so. But yeah, it's a couple questions here, and then we'll wrap up. So first one, thoughts on Ironheart being sort of shadow dropped next month. Now, of course, if you haven't been living under a rock or just forgotten, Ironheart, the show, which is featuring the character of Riri Williams, who was introduced, or at least in the MCU, back in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, sort of a backdoor pilot for that show. The show's been filmed, by the way, for like 2 years, and it's just now being released, which is, some of it's to do with the labor union stuff a couple years ago, and things being shuffled around, but it's a show that's been filmed for 2 years, and it's kind of strange it's just now coming out. But a lot of folks on Twitter and a lot of folks in the Marvel, I guess, news community has been noting they have not dropped any material for this whatsoever. Now, they've had snippets of it for, Disney Plus promos and stuff, but no real trailer. It's been kind of, I understand there's a difference between movie stuff and TV, and, when doing your marketing, but Andor had their marketing for that show started, months ago, long time ago. Ahsoka, same thing. They had their first trailer come out back during, Star Wars Celebration. So I know for the people who are saying, oh, trailers, for TV shows, especially, Disney Plus stuff, it's different, than the movies. Well, I hate to break it to you, but there is enough evidence to suggest otherwise, and this is different. This is not normal. For example, Daredevil, for example, their first trailer came out way before, the month before, and way before a month before the show came out. There's a lot before, but yeah, there is a difference, and especially in animation. Right? For example, like the Clone Wars, Bad Batch type of stuff. Yes, those trailers usually come out just a few weeks before the main show comes out, but still, even with those, there's enough gap. And with Ironheart, it's coming out next month. This will be out in literally a month. And there's been no trailers, no marketing or whatever. And I think the growing consensus behind the scenes, and at least with the scoopers and the news people, for example, Josh at, with Den of Nerds, his channel, he's brought this up, that this thing's getting shadow dropped. And that's not a good thing. I think it's obvious the fact they've delayed it. Some of the things we've been hearing behind the scenes from him and other scoopers is that this Ironheart show is it's probably not going to be very good. It's probably going to hit half baked. It's probably not going to be the standard quality. Probably it's going to be on a TV budget, although albeit it's going to be a lot larger TV budget, but still it's going to be constrained. It's once again also following that similar Marvel, 2020 style thinking where it's, I said this on Twitter earlier, but it's like, well, the fans want cool characters like with, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and the other Avengers. The 2020s thinking of Marvel has been, oh, let's do TV shows and movies on obscure characters that the general public has no idea who they are because, Guardians of the Galaxy succeeded. Well, like, I said this before and I'll say it again, similar to, and I agree with Josh with Den of Nerds, or Joshua with Den of Nerds, is that the success of Guardians and those movies of James Gunn, that was a false positive. There's no doubt in my mind. Marvel saw that success and they went, oh, after we get done with the Endgame and Infinity War, let's go in the, when we get into the multiverse stuff, instead of doing like our big time characters like, the OG X-Men, the new Fantastic Four, let's do obscure characters. Let's do Moon Knight, Echo, characters like that, Miss Marvel. Like, they just thought because Guardians was so successful, James Gunn, that they could just continue doing obscure characters that most of the general public does not know, except if you watch like Den of Nerds, Comics Explained, New Rock Stars, like to watch those channels, like you do not know who a lot of these other obscure smaller characters are, and that was Marvel's thinking for a long time. And I think with the failures of some of their Disney Plus shows, and that was also announced too, by the way, via Jeff Snyder in his newsletter, that Marvel is trying to at least move on from doing some of their TV shows featuring some of their Avengers level characters, moving towards focusing on other characters, which still doesn't fix the problem because they're still doing obscure characters. But anyway, but yeah, I think this is all. If you want to look at where we got to at this point here, but Marvel, especially on the TV side, it's the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the Guardians of the Galaxy syndrome. It's the false positive of doing obscure characters and being successful. It's very clear. Besides Guardians, and again, I've said this before, there's only one James Gunn, and James Gunn did a fantastic job of making those characters work and making those characters going from complete obscurity to now being mainstays with MCU fans. And look, I'll give him credit for that. That's a big deal. But I just don't understand why Marvel and Disney, I guess, as well, thought, oh yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy of James Gunn, that was successful. Let's do that with other characters. I'm sorry, but it's not working. Look at Thunderbolts. I mean, that movie's gonna flop. No, look, I like the movie. A lot of other folks like the film, but it's still, again, you're dealing with obscure characters or B-level characters, and it's flopping. There's no doubt in my mind. It's flopping. It's gonna flop, and it's gonna suck. It's probably Marvel's best movie they've made in this decade so far, or Marvel proper, not including Spider-Man No Way Home. It sucks, and I think that is a sign that the general audience is speaking that, look, we do not care about seeing these obscure characters. We would much rather see X-Men, either the new, whatever they're going to do with the reboot, the new versions, or the OG versions come back in Doomsday, or having other popular characters like Doctor Doom and Fantastic Four and other popular Avengers characters. Like no one cares about Moon Knight. No one cares about Miss Marvel or Ironheart or these other characters. And look, I'm not saying those characters are terrible. It's just the general public and the audience, the normies, if you will, they see those characters and they're like, who is that? Like, they have no idea who they are. And it's, you have to go watch all these videos and watch, Wakanda Forever because that same character was in that movie. It's like, oh, okay, so this is like homework. And that's also part of the problem too, is that there's so much, there's just so much stuff to learn about these obscure characters that it's like you have to study these characters and know who they are. And it's just, I don't know. Look, I understand where Marvel and Disney is coming from. Look, they don't want to do what James Gunn and Warner Bros. And DC have done with their films and like literally just making them not release something like, for example, like the Batgirl movie, right? That's lost media that will never be released. I know a lot of folks like, Den of Nerds, and I guess to myself, to a certain extent, wish that Marvel would do that. Just say, hey, look, we know where our audience is thinking right now. They don't want this. Let's just dump it. Sorry, to all the people behind the movie or this movie show or whatever. Unfortunately, the fans don't want it, and we have to write it off as a tax write-off. In an ideal world, that would be great. That would show that Marvel is listening to their fans and understanding the current trends of their audience, but they're not going to. That's not their policy. They don't, they're not going to do that. And look, more credit to them. Look, if they're gonna be consistent, at least be consistent in doing so. But I don't know. I mean, it sucks that we still have to go through, this Wonder Man and another character that folks really don't care for. I don't know. All I care about is, getting to, Fantastic Four and Doomsday and stuff like that and Secret Wars. I'll be honest, I'm just so sick of this, obscure character gets a TV show. It's a half-baked show. All the budget goes to, the final 2 episodes of the show, and it's rushed and whatnot. And not to mention, too, they're dropping 3 episodes in the first day whenever it comes out, which is, June 24th or whatever. So that's another sign of no confidence. Similar to the Echo show, because Disney, again, or Disney and Marvel, similar to this, sort of shadow dropped it. We're not confident. There was a lot of people behind the scenes were saying, yeah, we knew this sucked. We knew it. It's like, wow, really? Yeah, so that's happening. The trailer, by the way, is coming out tomorrow. And look, it could look good. The trailer could come out and you'll be like, oh, yeah, visually it looks cool. Yeah, I'd be interested. But still, it's not going to change my mind. I'm not going to watch it. Unfortunately, I just have no interest in watching it. That's not a character I want to watch. But anyway, yeah, so that's happening. Yes, it's being shadow dropped. And yes, Marvel and Disney, they're kind of, it's almost to an extent that they're sort of ashamed of it. It's like, do we really want to release it now? I've been pushing it off. All right, fine, we'll release it. And we'll put out a trailer. We'll sort of, not talk about it, but also sort of talk about it. But whatever. Is what it is. Next question here. As I sort of fix this here, make my notes here more organized. What head coach is not being talked about in the main cultural media sphere, but will in the future? This is something kind of been thinking about for a little bit. And there's actually two guys on here that I think that a lot of the hardcore fans like me and folks who watch Josh Pate, Cover 3, and a lot of those shows, we know who these people are, these 2 coaches here, but I don't think the normies know. And that's Alex Glesh at USF and John Sermo. I think these are going to be 2 head coaches currently at G5 that will get jobs in the Power 2, specifically in the Southeastern region, I guess. If you want to throw in the ACC in there too, I guess, sure, Big 12. But especially in the SEC Big 10, I think both of these guys will get jobs in those 2 conferences. No doubt in my mind. Alex Glesh, if you don't know who he is, he was the OC for Josh Heupel at Tennessee. Sort of grew up in the Baylor Bryles stuff, the veer and shoot stuff. It's basically a clone of it. A little bit different, but it's basically the same. He's at South Florida. Before he got there, that was that program after, after Willie Tiger left to go to Oregon and Florida State, and of course he flames out. The program started to decline. Charlie Strong comes in, and look, they started out really good in 2017 or whatever, and was it 2017 or 2018? But one of those 2 years, they started out with 7-0 and whatever, and they lost 6 in a row, and they're one of a few teams ever done that. He gets fired after a couple years. After that, they bring in the Clemson OC Jeff Scott to come in. It was horrible. Just they won 2 games per year or whatever. It was Chad Morris level bad. So he gets fired, and they bring in Glesh, and that place was horrible. It was a complete disaster. He's won 2, or at least he's been 2 bowl games. I think he's won 1 and lost 1, but back-to-back winning seasons there after they went 2-10. So this miracle work, but he's done over there. And the fact that you're seeing a lot of teams sort of embracing the Baylor Bryles stuff again. After the scandal of Baylor, I think a lot more folks are open to running that offense, and hiring guys who have learned it. Very select group, or very select group of people who actually know how to run it. And Glesh is one of them. Josh Heupel, I guess Lane Kiffin sort of, but mainly Jeff Lebby. But Glesh, I believe, will get a major job at some point, whether it's in the SEC or elsewhere. Just he will get a job at a big time job, probably in the Southeastern region. So just use your context clues. Think who's on the hot seat in the SEC. I guess you can figure it out. I guess from there. Same thing with John Summerall. SEC experience too. Was at Kentucky, at Ole Miss. A lot of experience. He's from Alabama. Sort of grew up in the Southeastern region. Did amazing things at Troy. And I know everyone looks at Neil Brown when he did there, and that was also significant too. Had a multiple 10-win season, even 11-win season. But what Summerall did there was amazing. No losing season. He's won everywhere he's been at. won at Tulane last year. He'll be there this year. By the way, if you haven't watched Josh Pate's interview with him back when he was first started, we resumed the speaker series for the spring and summer. It was like the first episode during the Super Bowl week, actually. Go listen to that. It was back in February. I highly recommend listening to it. It's very, if you don't know who John Summerall is, you will know him after watching that interview. It's very, very fascinating listening or watching or whatever. But again, a lot of experience, SEC experience, very good operator, if you will, of the college football program everybody's been at. He's learned from the best, learned from Mark Stoops, learned from, I believe, Hugh Freeze, or one of those guys at Ole Miss over the years. I think it was before Lane Kiffin, but still a very good resume. Again, he has a lot of history in the SEC. I guarantee you, if any of these big jobs open up in the SEC or really elsewhere, any of the other big conferences, he will get one of these jobs. And I think definitely in the SEC, he was up, by the way, for the North Carolina job. He didn't get it for obvious reasons. But yeah, John Sturmel, Alex Glash, definitely two coaches I could definitely see the college football media sphere talk about more going forward. And then look, I guarantee you this, and we'll move on, that if one of these guys gets any of these SEC jobs, they become open, a lot of folks are going to be like, who is this? Whomst, I guess, if you will, if you want to use that terminology. But yeah, that's, if you're listening to shows like mine and Josh Pates and Cover 3, you will know who these guys are, so it shouldn't be a surprise, but unfortunately it's going to. But yeah, both these guys, Galesh and Summerall, high-quality coaches. I don't know them personally. I haven't ever talked to them. But from what I've seen and listened to, and then talking to other people or watching their teams, they're very good teams. They're very, 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 very good teams. And both of these guys have a ton of experience at big-time level, at big-time college football as coordinators and assistant coaches, but will, I think, at some point be very good coaches in the future. So I guarantee, but certainly a possibility. One last question, and we'll get out of here. What are my thoughts on RDJ's new set photo from Doomsday Set? So this came out a couple days this morning, actually. It's him sort of behind the scenes, and it's not really much, really. I guess what is notable is he's reading one of Jimmy Renner's books. Jimmy Renner, one of his books, he's of course the Hawkeye actor. Kind of funny he's reading his book. I guess that's insinuating he'll be in the movie, I guess, even though it's not been officially confirmed, but Jeff Snyder confirmed it last week, I guess, or a week before. And as during his show with John Roca. But I guess the big thing here with this, and it's sort of a longer issue, I guess, with Marvel in general, is a lot of folks pointing out the motion capture CGI dots on his face. A lot of folks are like, oh, man, they're not doing the practical mask, they're doing the CGI one. Look, I get it. A lot of folks don't like it, but when you're in the movie business, at least what's the way it's been explained to me by watching other shows and whatnot, the CGI mask and like the way they have to do it, that's just the standard now. Like a lot of these actors don't want to wear like this bulky armor, and it's especially with RDJ. He's talked about this publicly that wearing, especially in the first Iron Man movie with and the one that Favreau directed, it sucked wearing like the bulky armor and having to wear the mask and stuff, and it sucked. And I think with CGI and the advances that have been made in the movie industry with with George Lucas and the prequels and the Avatar films of James Cameron and some of these other film franchises and movies and Lord of the Rings, that motion capture stuff and wearing like the dots and the gray suit, especially for characters like Iron Man or I guess Doctor Doom in this case, that's the standard right now, and that's just the way things are. And look, I know if a lot of folks hate that, and a lot of folks would prefer the practical stuff. Why I agree, it looks better to a certain extent. Like it definitely that feels more realistic. But the CGI stuff doesn't look bad either. Like go back and watch, Infinity War and Endgame with like the nanotech suit that Tony Stark started using in those two films. I understand a lot of folks hate it, or I know a lot of folks hate it. I never understood the hate around it. It's like it looks cool. Like who cares? Like, yeah, it's a CGI suit. What do I want them to do? Have an actually wear and use nanotech armor that doesn't exist in the real world? Like, okay, unless you want everything to be real, I guess, and I don't know. Just, yeah, I noticed a lot of folks complaining about it. And look, whatever. We haven't seen it yet in the trailer. I'm assuming we'll get that come December, I guess, before the movie comes out. Or but way before the movie comes out. Yeah, but yeah, I saw a lot of folks complaining about it. Whatever. It's just going to be a CGI suit. I'm sure it'll look cool. I don't personally have a problem with it, but I know a lot of folks do care about it. But it is what it is. And that's it for the show. Under an hour. How about that? Like I said earlier, Thursday, full reaction to the Buccaneers schedule and how it works out sort of I guess, analyzing it a little bit. Of course, we'll be back on Thursday with other stuff. And of course, we'll have, by the way, Superman trailer coming out tomorrow. So we will give my thoughts on that as well. We don't talk a lot of DC, but Superman is kind of a big deal for them. Mixed feelings on it still, getting a little more comfortable about it, a little more excited about it. But yeah, trailer tomorrow for Superman. I'll get my thoughts on Twitter initially, and then we'll talk about it on the show. Of course, again, schedule a reaction for the Buccaneers, another team preview. And yeah, so we'll have back on Thursday. Again, next week on Monday or early next week, again, with the way the schedule is going to be. May not have a live show this time next week, but we'll see. So until Thursday, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Enjoy your Wednesday. So until then, take care, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.